everyone. Today we're going to talk about identifying and plotting points in a coordinate grid. So on our previous slide, we looked at a Cartesian plane, and this grid here is really just the first quadrant on our Cartesian plane. We can call it a coordinate grid. And we're going to look here at this vertical line. This vertical line here is called our y-axis, and we always want to label our axes so we don't accidentally mistake them. So here's our y-axis, the vertical line, and then we're going to look down here at the horizontal line. This line here is called our x-axis, so I'm going to label it with an x. Okay, next we're going to look at how to identify points on our coordinate grid. The points are the parts here where the squares intersect, all of these parts here. So if I wanted to identify this point right here at the bottom, we talked about that in the last video. This is called our origin. This is where the y-axis and the x-axis intersect. And because it's right on the line here, you can see that this line is labeled with 0. Our coordinates are labeled with 0 and 0. There we go. But what if I wanted to identify the points of a 2D shape? First, I'm going to draw a 2D shape here. So here's our shape, and I'm going to identify the points of this shape. So I'm going to start right here, and if I wanted to identify this first point, I'm first going to look at the x-axis, and I can see here that this point lines up with the 2. So I'm going to label it like this. I use a bracket, and I'm going to say 2. Then I'm going to separate it with a comma. And then I'm going to look at where it lines up with my y-axis, my vertical line here. And I see that it lines up with the 6. So I'm going to label this with a 6. And then close the bracket. This is called an ordered pair. This identifies one point on your grid. If I wanted to identify this point here, I do the same thing. So first I'm going to look at my x-axis, and I see that this point here lines up with the 4. So I'm going to label it with 4. And then I'm going to look at my y-axis, and I see that it lines up with 7. So this ordered pair is 4 and 7. And I just continue to do the same thing for all the points on my 2D shape. So I'm going to start with the x-axis. I see that it lines up with the 8. And then next I look at the y-axis, and I see that it lines up with the 4. And then I'm going to label my last point here, doing the same thing. My x-axis is 5, and my y-axis is 3. My ordered pair is 5 and 3. Thanks for watching.